Always start with uh, some values that you can stand behind. And I met, it was myself, the president Alex Muzio, and the CEO Philippe Bormans. We all met with a specialist in this kind of um, arena of helping organizations grow their culture, and we discussed what was important for us and why it was. And then we came up with 5 values, and we discussed actually what those values would look like on a day-to-day basis. And that was the starting point. And then it's taken time. Once you have that value system, it takes time to then get it running and get the right people in and around it. And of course, when you bring something new to any organization, there's change, and not everyone likes change, and you realize who can't be part of that and who needs to move on to make it work.
All right, fantastic. And who was that person that you brought in to help with establishing the culture?
It was just a consultant, that we brought in. It was just someone who could help us direct our ideas a little bit and formulate them on our discussions.
Yeah. And what were the 5 values that you established right at the start?
So we work with integrity, commitment, courage, passion, and humility. And then, like I said, those 5 values, they get divided into a behavioral aspect, which is the interactions with each other. And then they get divided into a performance. And we would base a lot of our recruitment on those values as well. So whether it's a staff member or a player, those values come into play when we're doing our work on bringing someone into the club.
And you actually managed to live those values then day to day? Because I know we've had Stuart Webber on, and he said when he arrived at Norwich, they had certain slogans around the training ground, but he just felt they were slogans on walls, really. People weren't living them.
No, exactly. I've as part of my education when I was a coach, a young coach, I traveled a lot, visiting football clubs, and it was very common to see those kind of things. And I think you can watch any of these documentaries on American sports teams, and you'll see a lot of that kind of stuff on the wall. But it was important that they were living and breathing. It wasn't they were. I always say when we bring a new player in and we're doing a tour, it's not for selfies. It's a real living and breathing thing. And we have like I suppose I could call them workshops. Each year we try with a new group a way of reinforcing those values, but it's become easier and easier because we spend that extra bit of effort in the recruitment of players, and we look for those values. We're not looking for the perfect human being. But we need to have a sense and a level of those values in the player or the staff member that we bring in, because then it makes everything just run a little bit easier. And it's a bit more natural and authentic how the values work, and we don't have to force it down people's throats. And when we do run an activity or a workshops, probably a bit too formal, but when we do something, the values, it has a greater impact, and the players buy into it, what we're doing, to try and promote those and to improve them, should I say.
And how do you go about finding whether a potential target does embody those values? Because that sounds very, very difficult to do.
It is. So, I mean, any bit of research you do into a player that you want to bring in is in the beginning, it's always from a distance, but it's been a process. I look back to when we first started recruiting players with the idea of this. I look back to our reports versus now, and we've grown incredibly, immensely. The amount of effort that goes into it, it takes weeks and weeks of deep diving research. It's a lot of work that goes into it, and we've found ways to identify them. So if you have an idea in your head what commitment or humility looks like, I mean, humility, people get confused sometimes. Humility needs to be the guy can't wear a Rolex, or he can't come in with the Louis Vuitton shower bag, but that's not what we look at it. I mean, humility, an example of humility is being open to new ideas, being open to feedback. There's lots of examples that we've been able to nail down in terms of just a human being quality, and then there's lots of examples that we've nailed down as in terms of a football player, what that would look like as a football player. And we've learned to, and we're always redefining it. We're always trying to improve our information, but it's just a lot of hard work of going as deep as we can into the background. And like I said, when we started versus where we now are now with the information, it's night and day.
So would that be things like interviewing players that they played with, coaches, staff?
Very careful with that, because for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can sometimes come across somebody that just didn't get on with that person, and you want to be very careful how you take information. And number two, we always try to keep our recruitment as low key as possible in terms of the information that's going out. It's in our favor and advantage to keep our recruitment a secret. We don't want to alert profile, especially as the club now grows. Sometimes you see people throwing the name Union against the player, thinking that it will create some value. But no, it's not speaking to people directly. It's not that we've never done that, but we're very careful who we speak to. But it's a lot of research. It goes very, very deep into information. It's not Instagram posts or anything like that.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, because I was thinking things like social media, interviews they might have done with media, but that maybe can only tell you so much.
Well, you have to be careful, because I suppose people wear hats for those things, and sometimes they're informed on what they have to say. And also for social media, if you see a player wearing fancy clothes, standing in front of a nice car with his arms folded, that you can't say that he doesn't have integrity. You don't know. It's social media. And I don't say we won't look at those things, but we might say, if we see something that's concerning, then we'll go deeper in the background. But a good example of where you can find, I mean, Victor Boniface, who's the striker now at Bayer Leverkusen, when we were doing a deep dive into his background, we found something really deep into his social media, where a lady from Nigeria had reached out to him, who was struggling with food to feed her kids and that, and he just responded as simple and plain, send me privately your PayPal or your bank account details. And she had asked for a really basic amount. I think it was about 15, not even 15 euro, 20 euros or something like that. And he did it. We found that he had actually done that and helped. And he didn't do it. I mean, Victor wasn't a player that anybody knew at that stage, and so we could take some credit from that information. And we found it really far back in his Instagram. And when you put that against a lot of other things we found, we realized that this is a good human being, and that's ultimately what we want. We don't need an angel. We just need a good person with a good soul.
Yeah. And finding someone with a very good soul and a good person, he sounds like a great person, that can help performance as well, then, you think, on the pitch?
Well, I think, again, you find humility, which is one of our values. You find passion. So, passion can look like so many different things. It can be the passion to play football. It can be the passion and the humility to another human being. It can be passion towards your teammates. It can look so many different ways. So we can then find those examples. But where it then comes into the results is, if we recruit every player, we have some standard things how we recruit a player. And if we recruit every player the same way, it doesn't matter which country they come from, what's their background, religion, experiences, there's a strong chance that we can create a common denominator, let's say, between the players. Not that they're all exactly the same, not that they have the same background, but they have something in their spirit, soul, that kind of links them, and we found over the last 3 years we've had incredible changing rooms, and it's getting even better and better the more experience we gain in this kind of way of looking at a player other than his football abilities.
Because that sounds like it could be incredibly difficult as well, but it's very, very important is that team cohesion.
Oh, it's I mean, it's a team sport. You can't score the goals without someone passing. You can't win games without someone running for you, tackling for you, running with you, tackling with you, committed with you. And I'll never forget when I was at Charlton, Richie Barker was the assistant manager, and I always found Richie really fascinating with the way he saw the game and the way he would think about the game. And he just said, like, if you can find a common goal to get everybody behind, then you can have the success. But and it's true, but sometimes the common goal can't always be winning the championship or finishing in the top 4 or 5, because not everybody will have the budgets or the means or the quality for that. And if you suddenly miss out on it, then what are you left with? So you got me thinking a lot about this common goal, and if that common goal was, we've got a lot of players that are hungry to succeed and want to show themselves. And when you take in all the other factors around them, the data, the style of the player, when we can find those behavioral values and attributes, then we can create something common, and then we can have a team environment and a team ethos.